Hey everyone, welcome back to Dakota's Music World. I'm Dakota Gordon, and today we're joined by Jim Babjak, lead guitarist of the Smithereens, the band behind timeless rock staples like Blood and Roses and A Girl Like You. Jim, it's a real pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, it's my pleasure too.
Now, we're definitely going to get into some of the success of the Smithereens here, but I'd love to start with the beginning if that's okay with you.
Sure.
When did you first discover your passion for music, and how did that eventually lead to starting the band with Dennis Diken?
Mm. Oh man. Well, I guess it started with the Beatles, like a lot of other people my age. Um, I was crazy about the Beatles. I couldn't wait. I lived in this area where there was a newspaper stand on the corner, and I would check it every week to see if there was a magazine that had any articles about the Beatles in it. So, bought the records. It kept me out of trouble because that's all I wanted to do was play guitar and try to learn how to play these songs. And so I didn't have many friends at that time, maybe one. I was pretty much a loner going through late grade school because my parents moved a lot. We moved like 7 times when I was a kid, and that's kind of rough when you go into a new school, and especially if you go there in October. You're like the new kid and blah blah blah. So anyway, I was a loner, listened to records, guitars, Beatles, and then first day of high school, I met Dennis Diken, our drummer. He was sitting behind me in the first class of the first day, and I had a picture of the Who cut out of a magazine in my notebook, and he noticed it. So after class, he tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I happen to play guitar because he's a drummer. And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. So we've been together since 1971, best friends all these years, and we're still together and still best friends. I know a lot of bands don't have, they have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of baggage, but, I that's how we started, and then we met Pat, our lead singer. Well, I go back to Mike. Mike, our bass player. We had the same. Mike and I had the same accordion teacher when we were 7 years old, and we went to the same church, so we had our communion together. So there's pictures of us as 7 year olds with big ears, and just you know. So he saw how much fun we were having in high school with Dennis and I, just the two of us playing, and so he picked up the bass in 1975, and then we were tooling around looking for lead singers for another 5 years until we met Pat. And then in 1980, that was the classic lineup um, that remained until Pat's passing in 2017.
But so you met Pat through a classified ad, right?
Yeah, Dennis did. Yeah, um, well, Dennis, he had an ad in, and Pat also was looking for musicians at the same time, which was kind of weird. But so Pat was looking for a band, and we were looking for a lead singer. So it was, the stars were aligned, I suppose.
When you guys played together for the first time, was it like you had an instant connection? Like, did you know he was the right lead singer for you guys right away?
Yeah, but that's because Dennis, well, Dennis met him first, and he gave Dennis some demos, and the demos didn't have any solos on them or any. It was just a basic, thing. So when he gave it to me, I added all these parts, these riffs and the solo, and Pat was really impressed. He said, "All right, yeah, bring these guys in." So it was pretty instant. He Pat ended up getting a band that already had a sound and already was tight. It's we did all the work before, all the years and years of just playing in my garage, you know. Like I said, Dennis and I were playing like 10 years before we met Pat, and Mike 5 years. So yeah, it was like that.
Yeah, and then fast forwarding to 1986, you guys released your debut album on Enigma Records. You have Especially for You. which is overall just an amazing record. I mean, you have Blood and Roses on it, which is one of your biggest hits, and then you have Behind the Wall of Sleep, another great song. Um, when you released this album, I mean, it opened some doors for you guys. You guys got on MTV a little bit. You guys were, I think the song was featured in a couple TV shows.
Yeah.
Um, did you notice that change in real time? Like, was there anything right away that was kind of showing you like this album was a hit and we were making it big at that point or anything like that?
Well, yeah, it was exciting and moving fast, but it was also moving slow because Enigma didn't have the capabilities of actually releasing Blood and Roses as a single at the time. They were way late. It would have done a lot better even if they had physically released, 45. They still had vinyl back then. Um, they just weren't ready for it. Because it sold close like 450,000 copies, and eventually it went gold. Yeah, and but yeah, real time. We were in the middle of the hurricane or whatever, so it was kind of weird. I had people calling me that I haven't heard from in ages, and then even some of my friends were asking me for my autograph, and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
man, that's weird. I don't want to do that. So things started changing around us where we were still the same. We were just, in a rock band playing, writing songs and playing and you know, uh, so yeah, like I said, it was going around us and we were just in the middle of it.
And then Pat wrote Blood and Roses, right?
Yeah.
When he came in with that song, did you like know it was a hit or was it pretty bare bones when he came in with it?
No, no idea. As a matter of fact, it's buried on the album. Usually, you put your best song as the
Yeah.
first song. We thought "Strangers When We Meet," which is the first song on that album, we thought that's going to be the single, which it was in Europe, like in France and Holland and stuff. But "Blood and Roses," no. The only reason that became a hit is the power of radio and print and MTV at the time, because and the luck of it becoming getting into the soundtrack of this movie called Dangerously Close, and they used it in the movie and at the end credits, and they paid for the video. The original video for that on MTV had footage from the movie interspersed with us. And as the song became more and more popular, they started taking out the clips of the movie. Except when we did the video, they had a character from the movie sitting there in a chair next to us. And people always ask, who's that guy sitting in the chair? Like, we couldn't take him out of the video because he's in the whole thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. It was just all the ducks in a row, I guess. It was just luck. I mean, it's a great song, don't get me wrong, but we didn't know because Madonna was big at the time, and Michael Jackson, and synthesizer music, and bands wearing long coats and scarves and whatnot, and we're just a bunch of guys from New Jersey wearing T-shirts and uh, so no, we didn't know, but apparently it stuck a chord, struck a chord with people like Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
He really loved that album, and if you listen to "About a Girl," that song by Nirvana, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's very similar to "Blood and Roses." I don't know if you ever noticed that, but and Kurt, I we had Butch Vig produce one of our Christmas singles once for Rudolph, and when we were in the studio, actually that was in '93, so Kurt Cobain was still alive. I wanted to meet him because Butch Vig told me that they were A-Being our record in the studio during Nevermind to try to get that guitar sound. So I was really flattered, and I'm sad that I never got to meet Kurt. But yeah, so uh, apparently people needed to hear something like that on the radio other than whatever was around at the time. There was big hits by Duran Duran and whatnot, all great songs, but when they played us on the radio, it was so different and fresh. And that's the only thing I could attribute it to. We were just doing what we're doing. We didn't do anything special except just be ourselves.
No, yeah, and kind of going off of what you were saying about the Beatles and Nirvana, I mean, you were so inspired by the Beatles and that British invasion side of music, and then years later you have Kurt Cobain from Nirvana saying you were a major influence for the Nevermind album, which literally defined a generation. How does that feel, that full circle moment that you had these bands that you looked up to and you thought they were bigger than life, and then you have other bands that are these major bands saying that about you? Is that like validating or surreal for you to hear?
It's surreal, and I'll never forget. We toured with the Ramones back in '87 and or '86. It goes back that far, and we were doing a radio interview. Joey Ramone, me, and our drummer Dennis, and I think Mike was there too, at a station in Norfolk, Virginia. And they asked Joey, "What do you think about? How do you feel about being the godfather of punk and influencing all these bands?" And he said, "It's great, except all these bands are making a lot more money than we ever did." And that's exactly what happened with us because believe me, I'm not rich. I'm still, I'm still a working musician. So it is flattering, and yet it's kind of surreal. I'll take the compliments, and but we got to keep moving, you know.
No, that's a great point, because even if you look at like the Beatles being inspired by Chuck Berry, I mean, like the Beatles made a lot more money in the end than Chuck Berry did. So that's interesting. It's kind of like the people lower on the line end up being the ones who end up kind of making that money once it's kind of the path is cleared for them.
The path, that's right.
Hmm.
I think we definitely did open some doors because
Yeah.
I remember going into the record store on tour, first tour, and looking for our album through the bins, and I'm like, I can't find it under rocks. I go up to the counter, and the kid says, "Oh, the Smithereens, they're under a section called alternative." And I said, "What's that?" I never heard of it. It was
Hmm.
new. It was a
Yeah.
new thing, and apparently we were part of it, but I didn't even know.
And then also going off of your guys' love for the Beatles, I was looking through some of your music, and one song that I found I really loved was in the mega box set that you guys released. It's called "If You Want the Sun to Shine," and
Oh,
that one features Julian Lennon on it. And I mean, given how much respect you had for John Lennon, what was it like to get to work with Julian, who also had some hits at that time too?
yeah. I actually wasn't involved with the writing of that.
Hmm.
Pat knew Julian at that time, and I'm kind of sad that Julian didn't come into the studio and sing on it like he did on the demo. Um, they just never finished the song. Pat had to finish the lyrics in the studio after we recorded it. And but yeah, it was cool. I did go over to Julian's house once in LA, but that's about it. We never stayed in touch or anything, but yeah, it was cool. At the time,
Hmm.
people saw on the credits Jay Lennon, and they're like, "What? Did you write something with John Lennon?" No, no, it's Julian because they only put the first
Hmm.
initial.
That's really funny. But you did get to meet him at his house.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. And then if we go forward a little bit to 2013, you guys got a really cool opportunity to open up for Tom Petty.
Wow.
Um, I mean, just sharing a stage with one of the people who's like a defining legend in rock music, like Tom Petty. How does that feel? And how does it feel even now knowing that was one of his last tours that he was on?
Well, that was another high point for me personally, because when our manager told us that Tom Petty asked to have us on this particular leg of the tour, I said, "No, that's bull." Well, he never heard of the
Hmm.
Smithereens, and so after one of our shows, I saw Tom Petty in the hallway, and I started talking to him, and I said, "By the way, did you ask for us to be on this?" Because I always thought it was bullshit. I thought maybe it was your manager. And he says, "Oh no, no, I love you guys," and that just it got me right here. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. He knew our music, which I was really impressed. And I think he, along with us, is passionate about all kinds of music. If you listen to the Tom Petty radio station on Sirius, they still have him talking about all the other bands that he would listen to, and it was nice to see. Mike Campbell on the side of the stage at every show watching, you know, I
He
was,
was watching you guys.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that's
I was
awesome.
kind of, and I said to him after the show, I said, you're one of the few guitar players of modern, bands that I really um, like, that I respect, because I always respected his playing, the very melodic solos and not just shredding for the
Hmm.
purpose of shredding, which I find annoying. I think it just ruins a song. When I write a solo for a song, I want it to be memorable, a counter melody, or just something that goes with the song, and not just showing off how fast you can play. That always just turned me off. Like, don't get me wrong, Eddie Van Halen, great. It's just not, it wouldn't fit in our type
Hmm.
of music, in our songs. But so yeah, I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying that I gravitate towards the more melodic stuff. And actually, Hendrix, his solos were very melodic too. You know, so it was a blast playing with Tom Petty. It's such a shame. He's one of the great songwriters of our generation. He's right up there. I mean, the amount of great songs that he wrote, and like Wildflower, when they released it, and I'm like, holy cow, there's a whole other album's worth of stuff that's great, and he didn't even release it. You know, right?
I mean, there's so many great hits on Wildflower.
Yeah. I like that song, Somewhere Under Heaven, which
Hmm.
never came out, but I think they used it as at the end of a movie, a title thing during the credits. But when I heard that, I'm like, wow, they didn't put this on the album originally, you know? Yeah.
No, yeah, it's really sad when there's artists who have so much great music that haven't been released yet, and then it gets released, but they never really get to see the reception that got. But that's really cool that you kind of got to hear Tom talk to you and tell you what he thought of you guys, unlike Kurt Cobain, who never got the chance to. But that's cool that Tom
Yeah.
Petty actually got the chance to do that. Um, what when you were talking about the solos, what was like the dynamic like in like the recording process for you guys? So Pat would come in with songs typically, right?
Well, we'd hear him before. They would be
Hmm.
acoustic demos of just him playing basic chords. And of course, I would change the chords around and make them my own. People usually ask me, well, what is that chord you're playing? And I'm like, I don't really know because I don't read music. I usually say, well, I lift a finger here, add a finger there to whatever chord it is and make it a little different, and give that unique edge to it. Um, and then right in the beginning, Pat understood and knew that I can't follow direction. Like, if he said, "Oh, I want you to play this kind of solo or do this or that," I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know what you're talking about. It all has to come from my gut and my head, and so all of us, Mike's bass lines. Holy cow! I mean, his bass lines are so incredible. He
Hmm.
came up with the best counter melodies, and I think all of us had a good pop sensibility, or a good sense of music sensibility of how to make things not trendy, but just we never followed a trend.
Hmm.
Maybe that's why we never became really big. And so but now I think our music is kind of timeless. Like, if you put us in a group of, which was sometimes we do these 80s things,
Hmm.
I don't think we fit in. Like, I really don't. Not to be snooty or anything, but we're nothing like um, I don't know, Duran Duran, let's say, like total opposites. Again, not to put anybody down. But even in the 80s, I didn't feel like we fit into the 80s.
Yeah.
So, But we're stuck with that because that's when we had our that in the early '90s is when we had our biggest hits or whatever. So
Yeah, when you listen to the bands that kind of influenced you guys, you can definitely hear you fit closer to the category of like the Kinks or the Beatles or something like that more than the like the disco pop 80s style stuff like that.
yeah, and we never wanted to copy the Beatles or the Who or
Hmm.
the Kinks. For somehow we just came up with our own interpretation of, or not interpretation, but well, it was an influence.
Yeah.
That's all it was of classic song structure. You know.
Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about your album 11, which is besides your debut album, one of your more iconic albums, I'd say. I mean, it's just such a great album as a whole. Obviously, it has "A Girl Like You," which anybody who grew up in the '80s, I think, knows, pretty much knows that song. But it also has a lot of other great tracks that I like on it. It has "Blue Period" with Belinda Carlisle from the Go Go's. That duet is just amazing, and then "Blues Before and After" is also pretty iconic. I mean, when you look back on that record, what do you think made that era so special for the band creatively?
With songs, it's like you write songs as how you feel at the time. It wasn't following any trend or anything in music. We uh, we happened to use a great studio, and we used Ed Stasium as a producer for the first time because he had engineered the Ramones records, and he was a Jersey guy too, but living in California. And we used a great studio called Rumbo, which was a classic studio in LA. I think the Bangles recorded there, and Guns N' Roses. And Guns N' Roses canceled their sessions there, so we were able to get into the studio. And it was just a fabulous studio. All the ducks were in the row because, especially for you and Green Thoughts, did really well. So we got the budget from Capitol Records to go ahead, and it was, we took our time with it. We took 3 months to record that album, where I didn't like that. The first album took a week, and the Green Thoughts took 10 days, which I love. I love Green Thoughts. It's still one of my favorite records as a whole. And so with 11, I don't know. I wrote a song called "Cut Flowers" with Pat on that one, and it just came out so great. Um, Madonna was supposed to sing on "A Girl Like You," the women's part,
Oh
but
wow.
yeah, that I don't know what happened, but she canceled on that morning. We had the same manager at the time, so that would have been. We were trying to do that kind of to shock people
Hmm.
because, all right, here we are in an alternative band, and we're gonna have Madonna on the record, and we just did that as like just to screw with people, not screw with people, but to just have a little fun. And Belinda Carlisle, we met her on the road, and Pat wrote that song for her to record on her album, but she declined. But when it came time for us to record it, she obliged and sang on the record.
No, yeah, their voices fit great together on that one. And
Yeah.
then, so for "A Girl Like You," who ended up singing the girl part in the harmonies?
A woman named Maria Vidal, and Pat knew her, and
Hmm.
so she just came in right away and did it because we needed somebody really quick. And she was Pat's first choice, a friend of Pat's. So, and we had the budget. Capitol had the budget to promote that record. So, with "A Girl Like You" and "Blues Before and After" and all that, we ended up doing Saturday Night Live, SNL. We did MTV Unplugged, I think then, and we did Arsenio Hall. We did Leno. We did. So there was a lot going on with that album and MTV. So it goes to show that with a budget and the machine behind you, what it can do. You know. So we obviously don't have that machine now. It's word of mouth.
Yeah, but I mean that song is so iconic. I mean that's the kind of song that like if you're in like a convertible and turn the volume all the way up, that opening riff just like it feels like you're in a movie almost.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I'm in a movie most of the time.
I wanted to talk a little bit about 2017 with the passing of Pat. How did you and the rest of the Smithereens navigate that period? I mean, what ultimately led you guys to deciding to carry on that music forward and showing up for the fans as you have since then?
Well, the first thing that happened was we had a show scheduled in January before Pat died, and after he died, we decided to make that a tribute show, and there's a scholarship in Pat's name. Uh, and we decided to call everybody we know, all our friends who are singers from other bands and stuff, and have them all sing a song or two, right? So we had even Peter Zaremba from the Fleshtones, who I've known for a long time, Marshall Crenshaw. I called up BB Buell. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
who she is, and she's the mother of Liv Tyler too. Um, and all these people, Richard Barone from the Bongos, and Ted Leo. He was great. I don't know if you know Ted Leo, but he's really good. And so all these people,
Hmm.
and of course Robin Wilson from Gin Blossoms. And after that concert where we played for about 3.5 or 4 hours, it was just amazing. The fans just loved it, and I was getting such a rush. And I realized that people love these songs, and then realize that they're still going to want to hear them somehow, in some
Hmm.
form. And then after the show, Marshall and a bunch of other singers and Robin Wilson both, I remember them specifically saying, if you want to do some shows later on, and if I'm free, I'll sing with you guys. And then that's kind of how it started. And then the fans are just overwhelmingly still want to see us to play and see us play and hear the music. So, and what am I going to do? I don't want to retire. I'm going to be playing music till I drop. We all are, because that's what we do. That's what our passion is, and there's no reason to stop. Otherwise, I'd be sitting at home eating cheese doodles, watching TCM.
And I think it's so cool the way you've been able to bring the band to people still through these guest vocalists. I mean, as you said, you had Robin Wilson from the Gin Blossoms, which is one of my favorite bands. I think that's awesome. I've seen some videos of you guys playing with him, and he sounds amazing on the songs. You have Marshall Crenshaw, again, amazing musician, and now you have John Cowsill playing with you guys.
Yeah.
What I love about all this is that all these artists are people who are already accomplished in their own right. They're not trying to prove anything being with you guys. They're just singing because they like the music. And I think in that way it feels so much less like a band trying to replace their lead singer and so much more like a band just honoring that music that they've put out throughout the years.
Correct. That's exactly it. And I think people realize that,
Mhm.
because it's not like we got an imperson. We believe me, I got a lot of messages, and not tapes. What do you call them? Sound people singing that are trying to sound like Pat, and some of them do. But we don't want that. We don't want to. That would be more like a tribute band, which I don't want. We're not a tribute band. Dennis and I are the core of the band. We started this way before we even met Pat. So we're just gonna keep going with our friends. I feel bad. There are a lot of good singers out there, but the promoters aren't gonna book us if it's Joe from down the street.
Mhm.
Sounds like Pat, but it's not going to sell tickets. We also need to sell tickets at our shows. Um, so yeah, we that's how we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so it just doesn't feel like it's like a replacement of a lead singer. It feels like you're honoring the music, and I think fans see that, and that's why they're still coming out to the shows and excited to be there.
And we still have the energy, we still have the energy. We're not going through the motions and just
Hmm.
showing up, and we have a lot of fun, and we want our audience to have fun. And that's what it's all about, because it's a communal thing, of enjoyment, and a good night out, and forget about your problems, and forget about politics for 2 hours, and
Hmm.
just forget about all the bad stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, and you can still see your excitement when you watch videos from the recent tour dates and everything. You can see how you guys are excited to be there just as much as the fans. I wanted to talk a little bit more about your current tour. I'm really excited that you're actually coming down to South Florida. You're coming to Boca Raton, and you're going to be playing at the Funky Biscuit.
Yeah, it's about time, right?
That's a really iconic venue down here. It's really cool. You have John Cowsill stepping in as lead vocalist, which I also think is really cool because he's iconic, obviously, from being in the Cowsills.
Yeah,
Um, and they're the band that inspired the Partridge Family, which is really cool.
yeah.
But how did that collaboration come together, and what's it been like performing these songs with him?
Well, we've known Marshall since 1980, since we
Hmm.
started. Marshall played on some of our demos back in '82. On We had demos for "Strangers When We Meet," and he plays a baritone guitar on White Castle Blues.
Hmm.
So he's been a friend of ours, and we've opened up for him back before we had a record deal. The Cowsills, Dennis and I, when we were recording Blow Up in LA, we had a night off, and we saw the Cowsills were opening for Screaming Trees, and what was the other band? Well, they were opening up for two bands, and we went to see them, and I had just written a song called Now and Then, which ended up on the Blow Up record. And I'm sitting there, and I turn to Dennis and I go, man, I could hear it in my head. I could hear the Cowsill singing the background vocals to this song that I just wrote. And so after the show, Dennis and I went backstage and talked to John and Susan. They were first there, and I said, look, we'd love to have you. And they're like, oh, Susan's like, I can't believe it, the Smithereens. So, but they came in and knocked it out, and we've been friends ever since. And then um, they've even joined us on stage in the '90s when they were in the same town to sing on that particular song. So John ended up being a drummer for the Beach Boys for about 24 years, and we would go see the Beach Boys, Dennis and I, and sometimes John would let Dennis get on the drums with the
Oh
Beach Boys
wow.
and play a song or two. So we've been friends for a long time. So there were times when Robin and Marshall were both busy because they have their own careers too, as does John and Vicky now with their new album. So John said, "Look, if they can't make it to a show, I'd love to sing with you guys." And we're like, "Of course," and that's how it happens. That's as simple as that. And it's all friends. It's not like auditions or anything like that going on. And he brings his own sound, his own voice to it, which is great. And as does Robin and Marshall. They bring their own into it. So it makes it fresh for me, and I think it makes it fresh for the audience too.
Yeah, and I mean, after all these years, what's it mean to still be able to go on that stage and have fans singing those songs back to you? I mean, I've seen videos of you on stage. You're just as excited to be there as the fans are, as I've said. But what's it mean that these fans are all still showing up and singing these songs back to you?
I I don't take it for granted. For
Hmm.
one, I just I'm thrilled. I mean, it's I'm blessed, I guess, with that it's a rush. It's
Hmm.
better than any drug, really. It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing that you guys are still out there, still performing, um, and still doing all these dates. It's really cool. Jim, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I really appreciate it. And if you guys haven't checked out the Smithereens live, I highly recommend it. They're currently out on tour. I'll be putting the link in the description below with all their upcoming dates, including their show right here in South Florida at the Funky Biscuit, which will be March 19th. Go check them out if you haven't already. You won't regret it. Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, man. Looking forward to Florida because we haven't played there in a long time. So it's going to
Finally,
be
some
great.
nice weather too.
I can't wait.